welcome to another episode of Drilling Deeper. Today we're going to take a look at something that has local and provincial importance. We're going to look at the legacy of abandoned or orphaned oil wells. And Ontario is very unique in that it holds this history and heritage as one of the first sites of commercial production. Starting in 1854, the trips started picking at the gum beds in Enniskillen Township. And by 1858, James Miller Williams had dug the first commercial oil well, harvesting the raw crude, refining it into kerosene and machine lubricants, and shipping it throughout North America and Europe. This is an important legacy, and by 1860, thousands of wells had been constructed throughout Ontario, stretching from the southern shores of Lake Erie in Windsor all the way east to the Ottawa Valley and all along the shores of Lake Huron. There's no area of southern Ontario that has not been touched by the oil well drilling craze of the mid-1800s. And because of this, there were a lot of people that drilled dry holes, or they drilled wells that just weren't as productive as they wanted, and they abandoned them. These wells became orphaned, and there was no records or documentation to tell the government or any officials where these were. So by 1891, the Ontario Bureau of Mines estimates that there were 10,000 wells in production in Ontario. And there was no requirement until 1919 to create written well logs. These written well logs would include important information such as well location, well depth, and drilling methods, or any other activities that were happening to that well, such as production. These are really important pieces of information today because if these wells were abandoned and somebody just kicked some dirt over them, they pose safety risks to us today. These potential risks are caused by these oil wells, which are scars that the earth remembers despite us covering them up with dirt, because they can leak gases and chemicals into the surrounding area. They can contaminate natural water areas or fresh drinking water. They can also contaminate the soils and air above them. Now, how could we tell if we have an abandoned oil well on our property? Well, you can listen to stories that were told by older neighbors in the neighborhood telling about abandoned oil wells or perceived riches from the past. These are the keys to finding abandoned or orphaned oil wells in our communities. You can also see if there's an abandoned, rusty pipe sticking out of the ground, or sometimes you can smell a rotten egg smell. This rotten egg smell is the hydrogen sulfide that is often found in abandoned oil or gas wells. Or you may see dead patches of vegetation or bubbling soils, like on a wet day, a bubbling puddle. Puddles are not supposed to bubble. So these are really important aspects or clues that may help you decide or find if there's an abandoned oil well on your property. Now, you can also check out maps. There are maps listed at the Oil, Gas and Salt Resource Library website, or you can check out our virtual exhibit here at the Oil Museum of Canada to see if there's any oil works in the area. But like I said, these abandoned oil wells from the 1800s and early 1900s wouldn't necessarily have records. So what do you do if you suspect you may have an abandoned oil or gas well? Well, you can call the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources. There's a lot of wonderful information that has been put out by them that is being shared with our communities throughout Ontario. You can check out our virtual exhibit here at the Oil Museum of Canada that can give you information about abandoned oil and gas wells, the risks and resources to help you mitigate them. So feel free to look at the Oil Museum of Canada's virtual website about abandoned or orphaned legacy oil and gas wells. Or if you want, you can contact the Ministry of Natural Resources Petroleum Division directly by going to gas and oil wells at ontario.ca, or you can call them at 519-873-4634. We'll list that down below in the comments or the description of this video. And we want you to take action. Talk to your neighbors. Be proactive. If you suspect that there's an oil well that's been abandoned in your neighborhood, don't build anything over top of it, and contact local officials to get some assistance. There's no harm in asking questions or looking into the history of your site, as we want everybody to be safe. This is something that we are very passionate about here at the Oil Museum of Canada.